And welcome back to the Silly Ghost channel. I'm your host, the Silly Ghost, and today in this video, we are going to be looking back at a few popular movies that first came out in cinemas 20 years ago. The early 2000s was certainly an exciting time for moviegoers, full of blockbuster thrills and the beginnings of certain beloved franchises that are still going strong and enjoyed by many to this day. If there are any other popular films from back then that I failed to mention and that you think also deserve a shout out, feel free to leave a comment down below, along with a like and a subscribe to this channel. The first film to get a shout out is the one about a sassy, sarcastic, swamp-dwelling green ogre named Shrek.
Oh, Lord. Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
Produced by the good folks at DreamWorks Animation, Shrek is essentially about how an antisocial ogre meets a talking donkey and then gets swept up in this quest to rescue a princess named Fiona from a castle guarded by a terrible fire-breathing dragon, so that she can then be married off to this little dictator named Lord Farquaad, who takes great delight in playing with the dismembered limbs of his torture victims. Shrek then ends up falling in love with Fiona, who also happens to be an ogre as a result of this curse, where when the sun sets, she turns into one. Lord Farquaad gets eaten by the dragon. They manage to break the curse after the sun sets, leaving her as an ogre. Shrek and Fiona get married and live happily ever after, and Donkey hooks up with the dragon, later going on to produce baby donkey dragons. I remember seeing Shrek for the first time in cinemas as a little kid. I remember thinking how funny it was to see all these classic fairy tale characters all together, and Donkey being my favourite character just because of the way he talked. Thank you, Eddie Murphy.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. We can stay up late, swapping manly stories, and in the morning, I'm making waffles.
I watched Shrek many times throughout the course of my childhood, particularly as a result of it being followed up by 3 sequels and a spin-off. But it wasn't until I watched it again as an adult that I realised that there was quite a bit of adult-oriented humour.
Did I find it?
So, that must be Lord Farquaad's castle.
That's the place.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
Mirror, mirror, show her to me. Show me the princess.
It explained why a lot of adults love Shrek as well, and just goes to show that Shrek is an animated gem of a family film that has held up well over the years. In other words, Shrek is love, Shrek is life.
Big monster city. Temperature's a balmy 65 degrees, which is good news for you reptiles, and it looks like it's gonna be a perfect day to maybe, hey, just lie in bed, sleep in, or simply work out that slab that's hanging over the bed! Get up, Sully!
Another animated gem of a family film from the same year, from an equally reputable studio, was Pixar's Monsters, Inc. In a nutshell, Monsters, Inc. is set in a world full of monsters who live just like humans, where a couple of friends named Mike and Sully work at this power company that provides electricity harnessed through the screams of small children. How it all works is that the company provides these doors that lead into the human world, preferably into the bedrooms of small children, where the bigger, scarier monsters frighten the bejeebers out of the children, and their screams enter into these power cells to help keep the lights on in the monster's city. It's disturbing dystopia stuff when you look at it that way, especially when it's turned into this competition between co-workers. Sully does all the scaring, and Mike is his trainer, who doesn't do any paperwork and spends a lot of his working hours flirting with the receptionist. When a little girl escapes into the monster world, everyone freaks out because kids are actually considered dangerous and highly germy. Mike and Sully manage to hide her from the authorities and plan to smuggle her back to her world without getting caught. In the process, Sully develops a strong attachment to the girl, who he calls Boo. They find out that their co-worker Randall is running some sort of secret experiment where their boss, Mr. Waternoose, is in on it, and as a result, Mike and Sully are banished to the Himalayas. But they manage to escape and thwart Mr. Waternoose and Randall's attempt to carry out the experiment on Boo. After getting chased around for a bit, Sully and Mike banish Randall to Florida or Alabama, I think. Pretty sure it's Florida. They get Mr. Waternoose arrested, Turns out the Slug's secretary is an undercover agent, and Sully gives a heartfelt, emotional goodbye to Boo. It all ends with a major company restructure where it's discovered that children's laughter is much cheaper and more energy efficient than screams, and Sully is reunited with Boo. Once again, I also remember seeing Monsters Inc. in cinemas as a kid when this first came out, and watched it numerous times across the course of my childhood. What I remember most is actually having nightmares about the opening scene, where the boy is looking around his dark room and the monster comes out and looms above him. It turns out to be just a simulation, and the monster getting scared and messing around made up for it in some way. But it still took me quite a while to get over that first part. But I eventually told myself to put that fear back where it came from, or so help me. When the prequel Monsters University came out in 2013, where we learn how Mike and Sully met and what kind of antics they got up to in college, it was a nice nostalgic trip down memory lane. I thought it was quite enjoyable in its own way. However, the original Monsters Inc. will always have a special place in my heart.
No? Blimey, Harry, didn't you ever wonder where your mum and dad learned it all?
Learn what?
You're a wizard, Harry.
4 years after the first book was published, Warner Brothers Studios brought the story of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone to life on the big screen. Featuring a stellar cast of British actors, along with terrific costume and set design, we were transported into the wizarding world that was first conjured up in the mind of J.K. Rowling. The film touches on key moments from the book, such as Harry's life living with the Dursleys, up until Hagrid comes along, tells him he's a wizard, and then takes him to Diagon Alley. We get to see the Hogwarts Express at platform 9 3/4, the first time Harry meets his two best friends, Ron and Hermione, the Sorting Hat ceremony, Quidditch, getting taught Wingardium Leviosa,
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Harry getting the invisibility cloak,
Whoa! My body's gone!
Fluffy the three-headed dog, Professor Albus Dumbledore and Severus Snape.
Then again, maybe some of you have come to Hogwarts in possession of abilities so formidable that you feel confident enough to not pay attention.
And Harry meeting his arch nemesis Lord Voldemort. Along with so many more things that I could mention, but would require making a whole other video. As we all know, when it comes to movies based on books, the books tend to be better at fleshing out the story and can go into way more detail about characters and include a whole lot more than what a 2-hour movie can accomplish. When you make that comparison between the Potter books and the Potter movies, you can clearly see they had to skip over certain characters, like Peeves the Poltergeist, and scenes such as when Harry and his friends help sneak Hagrid's pet baby dragon Norbert out of Hogwarts. Admittedly, I had already watched the first 3 films before I even knew that there were books where you could find out a few spoilers well in advance before the films came out. But it was from watching the movies that first got me interested in Harry Potter and the Wizarding World. As a kid growing up through the 2000s, I remember getting excited almost every year to see the latest Harry Potter movie in cinemas with my friends and family. While I may not be the most avid Potter fan, every time I watch one of the movies or read one of the books, it brings back those memories of being on school holidays and having a nice dinner out at a restaurant before going to the movies to catch the latest adventures of Harry and the gang. All in all, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was the beginning of a franchise that, 20 years on, is still very popular and much loved to this day. Another movie based on a book series written by the famous author J.R.R. Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, was the first film in the trilogy directed by Peter Jackson. Filmed across the beautiful landscape of the sheep lovers' paradise known as New Zealand, with wide aerial shots making for a very effective promotion tool for the Kiwi tourism industry. To sum up the movie in a nutshell as best as I can, considering that it's 2 hours and 58 minutes long, we see the young hobbit Frodo get swept up into an adventure to destroy the One Ring, better known as My Precious, in the pits of Mount Doom in Mordor, to prevent the rise of the Dark Lord Sauron. But as we all know,
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
so Frodo gets some much needed assistance from his fellow hobbits, Sam, Merry and Pippin, along with the wizard Gandalf, the ranger Aragorn, the elf Legolas, the dwarf Gimli, and Boromir, son of Gondor and the OG of one of the internet's most classic memes. As this Fellowship of the Ring traverse through Middle-earth, they encounter many dangers, such as orcs, a troll,
They have a cave troll.
and a fiery demon called a Balrog, which Gandalf heroically faces and supposedly dies fighting. Towards the end, after Boromir loses the plot a little bit due to the ring's influence and tries to take the ring from Frodo, the Fellowship is ambushed by a big group of Uruk-hai. Like in almost every role Sean Bean has ever had, Boromir is killed after trying to defend Merry and Pippin before the Uruk-hai manage to nab them. Aragorn kills the ringleader, and him, Legolas and Gimli go and stop the hobbits from being taken to Isengard. Meanwhile, Frodo and Sam go their own way and find themselves getting one step closer to Mordor, unbeknownst that they are being watched. I remember my younger brothers and I weren't actually allowed to watch Lord of the Rings until a couple of years after all three of the films had come out, because I was only 4, 5 and 6 at the time. So my mum thought it was too violent and that we would have nightmares from it. Which, to be fair to her, those black-hooded ring wraiths and the noises they made were pretty freaky. But when we were finally allowed to watch it, we were thoroughly entertained. And when we went on a family holiday to New Zealand a few years back, we saw a couple of places where the films were shot. And I remember when we were staying in Queenstown, there was this little pop culture shop, and the owner told us a story of how the Legolas actor, Orlando Bloom, used to always eat and hang out at this funky little cafe that was just across the street. It was how the movies were filmed in actual outdoor locations around New Zealand that gave the fictional land of Middle-earth a more realistic look, which simply added to the lasting, I would say almost magical influence the movies had on the country, because looking around, we really felt like we'd stepped into Lord of the Rings. Overall, The Fellowship of the Ring remains to this day a fantastic introduction to a great fantasy adventure film series that really brought to life Tolkien's vision of a world full of hobbits, elves, dwarves, wizards, and orcs.
Did you ever think that maybe there's more to life than being really, really, really ridiculously good looking?
Based on the world-renowned video game series, Angelina Jolie dazzles as the globe-trotting Lara Croft, who collects ancient artifacts from ruined temples and cities, often through death-defying means, while always wearing something tight. When a secret society seeks out an ancient talisman that gives one the power to control time, Lara Croft gets caught up in it when it's discovered that her late father kept a key that can help lead to its location. So follows a lot of high-stakes action in the form of shooting sprees, Cambodian tourism promotions, crazy combat fighting, along with the compulsory shower scene thrown in to make every straight male viewer's thoughts wonder while making the blood rush down under. But don't worry ladies, and certain gents, Daniel Craig got his own shower scene as well, so yay for equality. Long story short, Lara beats the bad guys and saves the day. For a movie based on a video game, Tomb Raider did quite well at the box office. There was a remake that came out in 2018, which personally I thought was good, with Alicia Vikander doing a great job in portraying Lara Croft in her own way. However, because of my nostalgia, I am a bit biased in this regard, and think the original Tomb Raider movies are slightly better in terms of being fun, classic, popcorn adventure flicks. But each their own. And now to copy a method used by the folks at WatchMojo.com, shout out to them, here are a few honourable mentions of other popular films from 2001.
Do. I'll take the handle on the right. Ingrid, you take the handle on the left. Carmen, handle center left. Junie, center right. It'll work. It'll work.
There's 500 total, Dad. We need one more person.
Easy, though.
Hello, little brother.
Friendlies! God, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. How bad? My leg's broken. My back feels kind of weird. Gotta get you out of here, buddy. Pulling him out. Cover. Wait,
And that's it folks, thanks for watching. I know this has been the first video I've uploaded in a while, so thank you for your patience and for sticking around. I've got a couple of new ideas in the works for future videos, so stay tuned for that. Give this video a like, and if you're a first-time viewer, feel free to subscribe if you're interested to hear me talk more about anything to do with pop culture, current social or political issues, or anything else that I find interesting and wish to share and offer my insight or opinion on. Alrighty then, until next time, I'm your host, The Silly Ghost, signing out.